Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this seminar. It's good to see you here. We may not be a full auditorium today, but I can tell you this is high-quality people who are here, people with a lot of insight in UN issues and Security Council issues and so forth. So I'm sure that we'll have a most interesting afternoon. Today's seminar is which is being held within the framework of the UN Peace and Security Initiative at DIIS. This is a project which is funded by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, I should say. And the purpose of the project is to increase knowledge and also the level of information on the UN Security Council and the UN's peace and security agenda. Of course, this project has to be seen in the context of Denmark's hopefully upcoming membership of the as a non-permanent member of the UN Security Council in 2025 to 2026. The purpose of today's seminar is to provide insights into what small states, such as Denmark, can hope to achieve in the UN Security Council, especially at a time of war in Europe, and also when we see serious challenges to the international order established after the Second World War. Russia's invasion of Ukraine has underscored the return of great power politics. It also demonstrates the competing interest of members of the Security Council, especially the 5 permanent members. The invasion also has had a number of negative consequences for the Security Council's ability to respond to major crises such as the COVID-19 pandemic, the continued war in Syria, and of course also the war in Ukraine. But even when multilateralism is under pressure, many argue that being elected to the UN Security Council, it offers small states a very unique opportunity to secure international influence and defend multilateral cooperation. And this event will ask what small states can hope to achieve in the UN Security Council. This event combines research and practitioners' experience that will help, I'm sure, help us understand more about what it takes to gain influence in the UN Security Council and what options small states have in that regard. To do this, our speakers will combine knowledge from practical experiences and from research with more historical lessons learned from the last time Denmark was a member of the UN Security Council, which was back in 2005-2006. And let me just end my introduction here by a short introduction of the speakers we have. We have Christel Luik, who is a deputy permanent representative of the permanent mission of Estonia to the UN. And Christel is an experienced diplomat, speaks Danish also, understands Danish very well indeed. And you have been working with a broad range of issues from development and humanitarian aid to international peace and security since 2005, probably also before that. You will focus on the experience of Estonia as an elected member of the Council in 2020-21. And thanks very much indeed for coming here to Denmark and for taking part in this event. Then we also have Ambassador Ferit Hoxha, permanent representative of the permanent mission of Albania to the UN, and Ferit is also a very experienced diplomat who has been active in foreign affairs and international relations for more than 20 years. I'm very happy you came all the way from New York to take part here. I know that you know some of the good people here in the audience, and that only bodes for a very good and strong discussion here. Complementing these two, if I may call you that, practitioners. That's the way I used to term myself when I was in the bureaucracy. complementing these two practitioners' perspectives, we have Troels Burkald Henningsen, who is assistant professor at the Royal Danish Defence College, FAC. Troels' research includes the strategic effects of military interventions, and Troels has recently published a research article looking at small state strategy in the UN Security Council. And in this article, you focus on how Denmark prepared and executed a strategy for influence in the UN Security Council when we last had a seat there in 2005-2006. And lastly, I will say we are in very good hands. This event is going to be moderated by Maria Louise Clausen, who is a senior researcher here at DIIS and the coordinator of our UN Peace and Security project at DIIS. And Maria is also leading a project on Western interventions in the Global South. So with these words, I hand over to you, Maria.
I will actually not be taking up a lot of time, but just pass the word very quickly to Crystal.
Okay. So thank you very much for inviting these. And it's a pleasure to be here back in Copenhagen. So I would like to start with saying a few words about what are the expectations for the elected members of the Security Council. I mean, the elected members have a mandate from the General Assembly, from the whole membership of the United Nations, and therefore the expectations for them is to serve a bigger goal of multilateralism. It means working with a broader range of topics than just narrowly your own national interest. There is an opportunity to stand for a better world, for values, and without those, many of the countries, especially the small countries, would not have a place in the world. So, I mean, the Security Council work is it's a lot of work. It's a big rush every day. It consists of a broad range of mandated meetings and topics. But it is also like a huge responsibility. At least that's how we felt when we joined the Security Council in 2020. But in addition, of course, to that bigger goal, every country has their national priorities in the Security Council. And what is the role of the elected member depends also a lot on the level of ambition that the country has for the council. 2 years is a short time. There's no time to waste, and you need to start implementing your goals and ambitions from the very beginning. And sometimes it also means with standing the intimidation that comes from the permanent members who are there all the time and know all the working methods, tricks and possibilities how to influence the work of the Security Council. So for Estonia, the priorities were international law and standing for international law and common agreements, fighting against impunity, against human rights violations and suffering of women and girls in conflicts. We also wanted to keep the security of our region in Europe into close focus, but also work beyond our neighborhood. We also wanted to raise awareness of new security threats, including cybersecurity and climate change. And in terms of the working methods of the UN Security Council, we also wanted to work for increasing the efficiency and also transparency of the Council. So once an elected member joins the Security Council, there are always a lot of unforeseen crises, geopolitical flare-ups, coups, terrorism acts, things that keep the Council busy. And that indeed happened to Estonia also, because in 2020, just a few months after we joined the Security Council, COVID-19 interrupted not just the Council, but the whole world. So we had to first figure out how the Council could even work and be back open and use the opportunities of the virtual working methods. But however, like in retrospective, I would say that despite of all these interruptions, we were able to fulfill our initial plans for the Security Council term, and this included, for example, holding the first ever open debate on cybersecurity. So what are the ways the elected member can make a difference in the Security Council in this short period of just 2 years? So I would say one of it is use its role as a pen holder. If you hold any pens, then advocate for thematic issues, raise awareness of emerging issues, that these could be both thematical but also regional, and through working methods to increase the efficiency. So when it comes to pen holderships, Estonia, for the first year we were in the council, we didn't hold any pens. And in the second year, in 2021, we had 2 pen holderships. One was Afghanistan, that together with Norway, our Nordic-Baltic partner. And of course, like it turned out, the events on the ground turned out slightly different than we were expecting when we were getting the pen when Taliban took over. And the pen holdership means that in the Security Council, it means that you, I mean, of course, draft the resolutions that are necessary, but it's more than the resolutions. It's also other outcome documents. It is press statements. You keep the topic in the agenda. I mean, raise awareness of if something is happening. So it's a broader work than just drafting and facilitating drafting the text and facilitating the negotiations. And the other pen we had was 2 resolutions that were connected to Libyan issues and the migrant smuggling in the Mediterranean and the Libyan arms embargo. And that pen we hold together with France, a permanent member. So, I mean, this pen holdership, I mean, gave us an opportunity to work with these issues in the council, work with the whole council, because, I mean, if you're drafting a resolution, you have to work with the whole council. And also get an experience, I mean, on the second pen, working together with a permanent member. When it comes to thematic issues, I think the typical thematic issues that are very important for elected members are women, peace and security. Climate change has been a topic that the elected members have been pushing forward. Not climate change, but more climate and security. I mean, the part of climate change that is affecting the peace and security agenda. Then children and armed conflict is typically also one of those topics, and climate, women, peace and security, and also children in armed conflict were also priorities for Estonia. So with those thematic issues, we worked mostly throughout the whole period in the council. Estonia had 2 presidencies during our term, but I mean, it's not like for an elected member, the presidency is important, but on your priority topics, what we found out, at least during our membership, was that you have to work throughout the whole period you are in the council. Draw your attention to these issues in the statements, look at these issues also while you're negotiating, or keep them in mind when you're negotiating any resolutions or mandate renewals. The main thematic issue that was part of our promise to bring into the council while we were campaigning for the council was cybersecurity and drawing attention to the cyber threats. So during our second presidency, we were able to hold the first ever open debate in the UN Security Council on cybersecurity. I mean, bringing a new topic to the Security Council is not it's not an easy job. the permanent members are quite reluctant to add new issues to the council. It's full. I mean, they're not open always for new topics, and they think there are other forums where to discuss them. So bringing a new topic is quite a lot of sweat, effort, and determination, and also work with the other council members, having good friends who help you to push this forward. Cybersecurity had been discussed in the Security Council, I think, during a few ARIA formula informal meetings, but there hadn't been any open debate yet on this issue. And the reason why we wanted to bring it to the Security Council was to bring the new emerging issues to the Council. I mean, cybersecurity has been discussed in many other forums in the UN, but it has a security aspect also, which we wanted to do awareness raising about. Then on regional issues, we promised to keep the European issues, a close eye on the European issues, and mostly it was Ukraine, but also like the elections in Belarus in 2020, and the repressions by Lukashenko regime were something that we raised several times in the council, and we thought it was important to bring the awareness of what is happening in this region. So when we had already left the council, there were several council members from other regions, like Africans, who said that in the beginning of 2020, when the Russian war against Ukraine started, that they understood what we were trying to tell while bringing these issues to the council. Then on working methods, I mean, working methods is, it seems to be a technical issue, but it's also quite political very often in the Security Council. So we had a chance to work on them from the very beginning because of COVID, and the Security Council had to work virtually. We had a lot of discussions how this work is going to be conducted and whether we can work normally as during in-person meetings. Unfortunately, until today, the virtual working methods are not official, but we were able to establish the normal work speed. We discussed all the issues through these virtual meetings, but also like we stood for open meetings, meaning that they were broadcast as normal physical Security Council meetings. And Estonia is also a member of the Accountability, Coherence and Transparency group. So this had also been one of our promises during our Security Council campaign, that we will stand for the transparency. We also use the ARIA formula meetings, which is an informal Security Council meeting. During COVID, we used them sometimes because, I mean, this gave us a possibility to use our own platforms, which were a little bit more open and efficient than the Security Council technical system allowed. So we organized high-level ARIA meetings that were digitally also at a higher level that we could do in the UN. And it also got a lot of positive feedback from the broader membership because there were no meetings actually happening at that time. Our first presidency was in May 2020, and everyone in the UN were trying to figure out how to work in these new circumstances. And working methods is also something that is traditionally a topic that is very much discussed within the E10, the elected members, during their regular monthly meetings. And also one of the areas where the elected members have during recent years have been able to deliver one statement, E10 statement, during the working methods open debate. So we also organized 2 of these open debates on working methods during our 2 presidencies. And as an elected member, something that I would like to draw attention is important to assure continuity. So there's an information sharing between the elected members so that the new members can take the topics forward that the previous elected members have started. So I think on the Afghanistan file, we had a lot of preparations together with Germany and Indonesia. We took this pen over from them. We had the pen together with Norway. They stayed in the council. So at least on this file, I think we were able to assure that there is a continuity on the topic. And on cybersecurity, we are hoping that the members that are in the council now and we are joining the council, that there will be someone who will push this forward.
Thank you very much. I will give the word now to Ferit. You can stand up if you prefer.
I'll stay here. I mean, unless you want me to go there. Well, thank you very much for organizing this event, and thank you very much for making Albania part of it. So if I can say it in the very good Albanian, tu sindetak verelt. I'm really honored to have this opportunity to share a little bit of our experience in those 14 months that I've been in the council. I'll try not to repeat anything that Christel said. And I find the topic very important for 2 main reasons. First, there is not lack of knowledge about a key role that small states play in the international arena, and sometimes with very strong focus on particular issues, including the Security Council, and I'll come back with some examples. But that shows that actually being small without much of resources, this is not the case of Denmark, but it's the case of my country and others as well, doesn't mean that you cannot really come to the central stage with a distinct voice, with a particular interest, with the right focus, and with a key priorities. And it is those key priorities really you bring with your bag when you go to the council. Second, your whatever performance, your active role will not be judged only during those 2 years. And 2 years are 2 years for everyone. But trust me, in the council, they really fly. I think that we started yesterday. And again, I will try to explain why these 2 years fly much quicker in the council than anywhere else. But just a bit of a personal experience. I went to keep up the position where I'm now in October 2021, so just 2.5 months before joining the council. I was very comfortable in Paris, so I wanted to stay there, but they asked me, and as good soldiers that we are, we just say yes. But out of any joke, that serving in the council is the dream of every diplomat. Ask them, and they will not say no. So on one hand, I was absolutely happy and humbled, and really, I think it is the zenith of my career. And of course, I would never say no. But you still think that you are going there to jump into a moving train. The train doesn't stop for you to jump in, because the council never stops. And you just have to be at the right time, jump in, and continue to work with others who have been there, especially the permanents, for 77 years. And I've called, once I went there, I've called the place, the Security Council, the place where lights never go off. They're always on, and that's literal actually. They never go off there. But it means more on work and on continuity of work. Before starting, one colleague of a small state, but with a lot of experience, got me aside and told me, "You've been elected to the council, so you'll be swimming with the sharks." And of course I took it as we will be working and sharing the seat and the council and the work with the permanent fives. And I found the metaphor quite suitable, because the council actually is the place where the inequality is the law. You are 15, 10 are there all the time, 10 are elected, stay for 2 years, boom, they go. But he said, and there are 6 of them. So I know there are 5, but there are 6 of them. So he added more confusion to my apprehension. And of course, not to expose my ignorance, I never asked who the 6 is. So I would find out actually during the first month who the 6 was. And the 6 is when the 5 come together. Because the 5 most of the time used to come together. And we do not like to say that there is a division between the 5 and the E10. There is a division there. Less now, I'll explain it a little bit. I think there is absolutely an acute awareness from the small countries when they go and play into a bigger court that anything that happens to the international rules-based order, the order that we know and we want to protect, affects them more than anything. They will be the first to pay the huge price. That's why anytime, if you pay attention when we meet at the General Assembly or in the Council or anywhere in different forums, the small countries are the first to really defend international law and the rules, and they are in the front line to really, because they think that these laws protect them, because they are the first protection. It may not be enough, as we've seen with Ukraine, but at least that's the first wall, the first protection. And at one of my interventions, early interventions on Ukraine, and there have been a lot of them because we had a meeting last year almost every week. Once we saw what happened, once we saw that the unthinkable was happening in front of our eyes, and actually it was during a Security Council meeting chaired by Russia itself that the war started on 24th, 23 in Ukraine, 24 in New York. And I just asked one question. We saw what's happening in Ukraine, who is next? Because we knew that we were returning, at least Russia was returning the world to the law of might is right. And that law, might is right, leaves vulnerable who? The small ones. Those who do not have big armies, powerful allies, and the ability to really defend themselves through classical means, but they want to be protected with what they have built over the years, which is the international law and the mechanisms and the courts and the accountabilities. So it as I said, it may be enough, but that's where it starts. Once you are elected in the council, the very first week, you realize one thing. You're one of the 15. It's the most important table history has ever known. It's the most authoritative institution that the multilateralism, the way that we have invented to work, to come together on shared interest and to build on that, that's the Security Council. That's where all the issues converge, that's where all interests converge, and that's why we sometimes compete with each other to get elected. And the theory goes that there is one country, one vote, and that actually works in the General Assembly, and we have seen and we see that every September, and that's the parity. But that doesn't work in the Council. In the Council, yes, there is one country, one vote, but there are some countries who have more than just a vote. They have also the veto. So once you go to the Council, you have to figure out, how will I be able to swim with the sharks, to play by their rules, and to make sure that what we bring in terms of interest, in terms of perspective, in terms of vision, in terms of voice, and in terms of priorities, how are we going to implement? How are we going to be listened? And how are we going to do things with those who have more power than we have? And of course, we will try to do that through diplomacy. We'll try to do that by being active. We'll try to do that by building a profile on issues on which we have been dealing and insisting even before the Council. And for us, the priorities that we brought in the Council are things that we have been investing at least in the last 30 years. So human rights, and particularly women's rights, which links to women, peace and security, which is a column of work and discussion in the UN at large, but in the Council particularly. International law, and I said the importance of it for small states. But also, of course, other issues, climate and security, and how to protect multilateralism, because from multilateralism we have those laws and that wall that could and should protect us all in who we are and what we do. And of course, Albania today has a government that is the fifth or the sixth in the world in terms of gender balance. We have 17 ministers, and 12 of them are women. So the idea of fighting for something by doing it and by demonstrating makes it more credible. So you have a rather stronger voice when you defend those ideas. And of course, we had a prior sort of a major exercise in 2020 when we had the chairmanship of the OSCE, and those priorities that were in the OSCE in this very large security, not only but security mainly organization, of course, we transferred them to the Security Council as well. I have seen in the 14 months in the Council that small countries, we say elected countries, but among the elected countries you can have also Japan and India and Brazil, so they are not very small. But still, the majority of the elected countries come from small countries, because in the UN, out of 193, 110, including Denmark, qualify as small countries with different means and different historic backgrounds, with different interests, but still there are small countries. So there is a feeling of the fact that the UN actually is dominated by small countries. So most often we have the small countries in the Council, and I've seen them be promoters of change, be promoters of trying to push not only narratives, interests, issues, fermenting discussion, but also trying to change slowly the institution that is P5 dominated. So and you can do that just by being active. Crystal mentioned a number of detailed things how we do it, by organizing meetings, by calling meetings, by taking the pen. And actually the pen holdership is a very technical word. Holding the pen means that you become the country first in charge of a dossier. Very concretely. When the war started in Ukraine, Ukrainian dossier was managed by the US. The US had the pen, which means that the US would produce any first draft resolution, any first draft for document of the Council, be it what we call the presidential statement, which is agreed by the Council, or by press elements. So, and also you are the one who would call for a meeting. So I want a meeting on the children deported by Russia in Ukraine, and the Council meets. But that comes from the pen holder. So what we wanted is to be co-pen holders. So we told our colleagues that we would be very well fit. It's something happening in Europe from a country that is member of the geographical group where we are, the East European states. So we want to take a greater role, a more active role. We want to be working with you on par. They accept it. That's how you try to push and to make yourself more active in the Council. There is also one thing that small countries come with very defined priorities. Albania had 5 major priorities, and I mentioned some of them. It is also multilateralism and bringing solutions through partnerships. Larger countries, they have a 360 degree interest. They are interested almost in everything. So their priorities, it doesn't mean that they don't have priorities, but their priorities are less visible. So when we come with some focus, we try to really make sure that everything we do is compatible to those priorities. Now, how did we manage to implement our priorities? First, small countries are the most interested to bring civil society briefers in the Council. The briefers, almost every meeting in the Council, will bring people who will talk. We talk about Ukraine, so we'll ask someone from the UN system dealing with the human rights to come and speak before the members of the Council, so to inform them and to feed into the discussion. But also we want to have those who are on the ground, NGOs, journalists, people with very concrete knowledge. And the more we bring in the Council, the better it is in order to have a much better information and take informed decisions. During the presidency that we had, the first presidency in June last year, we brought 19. Usually it's 3, 4, 5, at the best, 8. Germany brought 14. So the interest of small countries to really have another voice than the member states is implemented by bringing more briefers from the civil society. Yes, I know that I have 2 minutes. I just have a couple more points. Also, the small countries are the most interested in accountability, and that's what we did. So we took central stage in accountability issues, and you do that by calling meetings, by organizing. We organize a group of friends together with Denmark and some other countries on the accountability for the aggression in Ukraine, and that's why you push the interest. We spoke about the penholdership. You also do by trying to change the nature how you work, UN at large works. For instance, the biggest change that happened out of the context of the Ukraine war was to hold those who put the veto accountable. How you do that? Through a resolution that every time there is a veto casted in the Security Council, you have to go and explain to the large membership how the veto serves peace and security. And that's a fantastic deterrent. It doesn't mean that the veto didn't happen, but China and Russia have gone there to explain how, and to explain to everybody how you guys, the good guys who put a veto, who are blocking the council, who are taking it hostage, tell us how this really serves peace and security, and that puts them on the stop, and they don't like it. And this is really a very good mechanism that we've supported, and it is from the small countries. Liechtenstein was the initiator and the ACT group, but that's how you push really and try to change things in the council. And then also one pre-last thing. It was upon the initiative of a small country that we managed to have a resolution adopted in the council last year on the humanitarian carve-out of the sanctions regimes. Very simply, the council adopts resolutions. Resolutions sometimes sanction people who do not conform to the rule of law, either leaders who have seized the power by force or those who are against free elections and so on in different contexts. But every time you have to make sure that you do not affect the work of humanitarian actors, be they UN or other international actors. So we, the Council, but on the initiative of a small country, we framed a resolution that on any sanctions regime, anything that is done to help is absolutely excluded on every resolution that will be adopted, which means that we keep the sanctions as a tools to really enforce political decisions in some countries, but you don't affect the humanitarian assistance. Two last things. There is a lot especially in the academic world, in saying that the permanent members have a fantastic advantage because they have the institutional memory. They're there all the time. And I've seen actually, even with countries who have been previously in the council, once they go with 15 years, they say, oh yeah, there is no record, so we start from scratch and so on and so on. That is true to a certain extent, because more and more, by becoming active, by really preparing very seriously, by really gathering a fantastic team, and by working before election, the small countries and the elected countries have really narrowed that, which means that we get on the train while it is moving and we just continue without really having that advantage that the permanents have by being there all the time. So that means that we can swim with the sharks, of course, when they are well fed. And the other comparative advantage of small states, beyond being beautiful, of course, is the ability to maneuver quickly. And I've seen during my first year, these 14 months in the council, it's easy for me to talk to the minister. It's easy for me to talk to the prime minister if really I need to, and if the issue has to really go that way. So we are able to cut the red tape much quickly. And trust me, it helps. Even sometimes when you have to negotiate text, we change and you have 2 hours to make your decision. So this is the ability of small states also to really be active. And when I have the decision of my prime minister, I don't care, I go. So, but I'm sure I left a lot outside, but I hope that questions will allow us to really deepen a little bit more. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much for these comments. Very interesting. So now we have the final speaker, Troels, who has a PowerPoint. And he will actually tell us a little bit, maybe, that speaks about the institutional memory, because he will focus on the last time that Denmark had a seat in the UN Security Council, which was in 25 to 26. So maybe 20 years will pass if we actually manage to get on in 25, 26.
Yes, and while we're setting up the PowerPoint, I will just say that 20 years ago, as most of you, all of you, of course, remember was a different time, different great power relations on what we see today. But we're still only 2 years away from the Iraq War, and a lot of mistrust and some kind of rivalry among the P5 were also part of the picture. So perhaps we can make some comparison to that when we get into the discussions afterwards. But thank you for the introduction. What this is about is this is an archival study I've done. So it's actually very, very interesting to hear the two speakers talking about how they promoted their objectives in the Security Council, because I've only read about it. So, but there's a lot of commonalities. So that's interesting. Okay, so we already discussed the difficulties that the elected members face, the institutional memories of the P5, but also, of course, the lack of power that most elected members suffer from. You don't have all the resources, either diplomatic or even your economic or whatever power resource you have. You don't have them to draw on. So that leaves some good questions. The first one is, perhaps what is important for a small state is simply the prestige of being elected. Then we'll be able to take a back seat. We'll accept that we'll not be able to shape what is taking place in the Security Council, but we will still have the prestige of sitting there. And then that's I guess for some small states a viable strategy and sufficient strategy. But as we heard from the two speakers, I think that for most small states, the actual question is more of how do we compensate for the lack of power? How do we compensate for the position that we have, that we need to in order to gain influence? So I know these are a bit busy slides. I'm sorry. So if we look for theoretical answers about how do small states gain influence, I think that one of the things to keep in mind first is that there is actually a lot of power in the image of a certain small state, as you mentioned with Albania. You have been building on this image for quite a while, and I think that the historical engagement in the UN, a high level of developmental aid as the Nordic countries has, or large contributions to UN peacekeeping, all ways to build up the image of a small state, to give you a larger voice inside the Security Council. And also there's some more specific ways that you can build up a strategy to gain influence. I'm not going to go through all of it. Just to mention a three that I will focus on in this presentation. The first one being hard work, simply demonstrating your competency either in daily work, in a subcommittee, delegating sufficient resources to a subject. And one of the things that I found in the Danish case was that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, they created so-called virtual working groups who studied all ongoing conflicts, simply to build the knowledge, the sufficient knowledge about each of the conflicts, so that this train metaphor that we use, that we were able to jump in and speak with sufficient depth about each of the current conflicts, because you never know what conflict will pop up. So that was one strategy, simply demonstrating hard work, being recognized, being part of being part of the debate, being part of the negotiations taking place behind the scene. So and the second one goes perhaps it's related to the hard work, but coalition building. The idea of utilizing the number of small states and the common interest in, as you mentioned, the common interest in international order and law to put pressure and isolate the P5, either all of the P5, which might be quite a task, but one or two of the P5s who take a position that goes against the interest of the small states. So building and maintaining this coalition, despite the pressure of the P5s to drive a wedge into this coalition, that might also be a viable strategy to gain influence. And finally, as we heard when we spoke about cybersecurity, for example, being an entrepreneur might also be a workable strategy, at least if you're able to identify policy issues that are so to speak in the loop, which are part of the discourse of the UN organizations or the important policy makers within the UN or UN organizations. Then you can utilize that as a way to gain influence by I'll return to that, but by different ways to put it on the agenda. So that's at least three strategies to use. The three examples I'm going to give you is perhaps not the examples where Denmark got the most influence, but they are interesting because there were there was at least some kind of opposition towards the Danish position among the P5. So it went against the interest of sometimes Russia, China, and sometimes the US, but still were able to influence the final outcome. So I thought that was actually interesting cases to look at. I come from, as it was mentioned, the Defense College, and I work at the Institute for Strategy. And one of the things that you sometimes tend to do when you work in such an institution is perhaps that you rationalize actions and make them seems like it is a strategy. It was purposeful action that we undertook, whereas in practice it was more based on the ambassador's intuition, the flair of what is going on within the UN Security Council, or just standard operating procedures that you just followed. So that is a risk, at least when you do an analysis 20 years later. But I think. And I think when we look at the way Denmark prepared and executed our membership of the UN Security Council, you see a little of both. So you have flexibility was built in from the beginning. So we also heard that you talked about having priorities rather than fixed goals. So you knew that within this topic, we were generally interested in promoting these topics, but the exact outcome might differ from what we have perceived beforehand. So, and you can see it when you look at the Danish priorities. African conflicts, that can be a lot. There's a lot of ways that you can gain an influence here, and also reforms of the UN Security Council, also quite a broad priority. So within these priorities, you could navigate a bit. And also, as was mentioned, and we heard about the Ukraine war and COVID-19. A lot of times, the position and the goals they simply materialize during the process. Sometimes the topic first popped up during the membership period, but also opportunities and coalitions that simply weren't you couldn't perceive them in advance. So I think one of the things that Denmark did to compensate for that, the speed of the train, so to speak, was the preparation I mentioned with the preparing for the conflicts, but also speaking to other former members of the UN Security Council, and also a lot of delegation to the delegates in New York, so they were able to seize on opportunities, able to build coalitions and so forth, and work in New York. So if we look at the examples, I think one of the a very interesting example was the Danish chairmanship of the Counterterrorism Committee. Which was actually quite difficult to get. So at that point, Denmark had harbored or given asylum to activists from Chechnya, which Russia perceived as terrorists. So there was a lot of Russian hostility towards Denmark being the chairman of the committee, and it's one of the few examples where we see that this Danish loyalty towards the U.S. actually pays off very, very concretely. That the U.S. simply say that, well, you have a lot of goodwill because of the Iraq War, so they decided to promote Denmark as a chairman, even though Russia were very, very much against it. So what Denmark did was they really tried to do everything in its power to get the committee to become more effective, because that was really a key national interest for both Russia and the U.S. To have efficient counterterrorism work in especially the global South, and so Denmark did a lot to make the committee much more efficient. And even though a lot of it didn't really pay out, there was a lot of acceptance among Russia and the US for what Denmark did, which in the end meant that we were able to at least influence the outcome in the margins. So we were able to get acceptance that human rights were part of the work that was being done among the global South members of the UN, and also connecting the counterterrorist legislation with the developmental aid, so they could actually implement it. So that was perceived as a Danish influence in that sense. I'm running a bit short on time, so I'll just try to make it as quick as I can. Another example is the referral of the Darfurian war crimes to the International Criminal Court, which were, of course, very much a topic that popped up. It was difficult to prepare in advance, because there was this report documenting that it was actually war crimes and perhaps not genocide, but at least war crimes. So there was a pressure to do something. And U.S. and Russia were promoting an ad hoc tribunal, and China was actually against most of the initiatives. So one of the ways to handle this delicate situation where you are actually against the U.S. position was simply to make the Danish position public. So it was difficult for the U.S. to demand that we handle this by closed doors, which they actually tried to do. And also, we built a coalition among the elected members, trying to have a lot of meetings, a lot of coordination behind closed doors, have EU taking a position on this. And then when we sensed that the United Kingdom were perhaps being swayed by the U.S., moving a bit towards the U.S. position, try to make Per Stig Møller, the Danish foreign minister at that point, have a lot of bilateral meetings with his UK counterpart. And you can say in some sense it worked. The United States were fearful of being isolated on this topic, and having all the Western countries having taken a different position than them, and they also faced domestic pressure, of course. So in the end, it ended up as an ICC referral, of course, with some important loopholes for the US. I think I will skip the last example and go for some of the general points so we have enough time for the Q&A. So we can perhaps return to the question of the Peace Building Commission, just saying that this entrepreneur role is also important, and something that, as you mentioned, take place. A lot of it takes place before you even get elected. We can return to that. So I think what we can learn is that this combination of having really diligent preparations, really being ready for this fast-moving train, but also having flexible goals so you can adapt and be ready to handle any new issues once they come up. That's actually key. So half symphonic music and half jazz improv. Perhaps one of the things that we might also want to discuss in the last half hour is also the question of, this was 2005, 2006, how does the UN Security Council work today? We actually heard quite a bit about it, but does it really change the kind of roles that the small states can take? And I think one of the things to notice is the mistrust and the lack of diplomatic channels might also increase the need for an honest broker, a role I didn't discuss that much. But this dilemma of either having a solid position against Russia, for example, in the Ukraine war, and on the other hand, have the diplomatic flexibility to actually work as an honest broker. That might be kind of a policy choice you have to make as an elected member. What kind of way to gain strategy, gain influence you want here. And I think also a point that I think both of you made is that a lot of the work of the UN Security Council is actually not related to the most contested issues like the Ukrainian war, but are ongoing conflicts in Africa and the Middle East, which you simply just have to handle, and that might also be a way, be a place for a small state to gain influence. So that was the really short version. Yeah, and if you want to read more about it, I have linked to the article here. So thank you.
Thank you very much for another very interesting presentation. Now we have about 30 minutes for Q&A. I want to say that, start by saying that I thought it was very interesting to hear these presentations. First of all, I of course want to make a special notice of the use of experts, which I think is an excellent trend that we should see more of. Obviously, I also thought that some of the interesting things that you talked about here was the navigation that you all mentioned, more or less, the navigating between the planned and the unplanned, which is an important aspect. And then obviously something that I think we should also talk more about is this relationship between the P5, the permanent 5, and the E10, the elected 10, and how that is dealt with, and the different implications that are in this relationship. But I will not take the word myself, but ask if there's anybody who has questions. And I would ask you to please introduce yourself and wait for the microphone, because this event is being live streamed. Anyone? So we have Anina in the back.
Good afternoon. My name is Anina Hagemann. I work at the Danish Foreign Ministry. I was wondering whether you could share whether you have worked closely with countries from the Global South on furthering priorities in the Council, and if you can share examples or tricks of the trade in those types of situations. Thanks.
Are there any? Yes, let's take Louise also, and then we can take a round of replies.
Thank you. My name is Louise Ries Andersen. I also work with Anina in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and my question is actually a follow-up to her question. Also on the, you talked a lot about the thematic issues and how you deal with those, but there are also all the actual crises on the Council agenda, which often are the ones that get most priority from the P5, whereas the E10 tend to focus more on the thematic issues. So maybe if you could speak on that dynamic, but I think also in relation to Anina's question with the Global South, how the African members see that relationship between thematic issues, women, peace and security, children in armed conflict, and then the actual crisis situations that are on the Council agenda, which most of them are in Africa. Thank you.
Okay, so working with the Global South, there's one rule. When you are the UN, you work with everybody. And whether you speak, don't, or just look, you take a position. So this is absolutely everyday life in New York. When we were campaigning, and we were in the same situation as Denmark is, at least from now, but I'm sure it will not change. So we were what we call the clean slate. So we were not in a competition. It was different for some other, including Estonia. But still, we never left anybody behind. So we tried to contact every other member state for whom were asking the vote. And you do that in many different ways, by knocking on the door, by sending envoys, by sending letters, by sending too many letters, by sending notes, by exchanging different, we support you here and you support us there. So these are the tricks and the mechanisms and the tools that you use in the multilateral arena. But also we did something very specific because as a small country, we are not very much present in Africa. So we have only one place and we try to cover as much as possible, but it's absolutely impossible. And of course, we are not a donor, we don't have development programs and so on. But we try to get them interested by asking them, what are your priorities? And how can we be helpful in whatever way for your priorities? Because that's at the end of the day their interest. We will be in the Council. Issues will be there of interest for us, for you, for everybody. So tell us how we can be of help for you. And then we started doing something very practical. So we listened to their statements and we saw what was interesting to them. So we instructed our diplomatic corps in the multilateral hubs. So in New York, in Vienna, in Paris, UNESCO, in Rome, FAO, and in Geneva, of course. And we tried to have our statements longer and really highlighting some of issues that are of importance for Global South. And we will tell them that we are speaking about this, and we will call them specifically and telling them that, yeah, we're trying to do something that is, of course, resonates with your interests. Of course, without never compromising our positions, but we would have a statement that is longer with issues which normally would probably not be in our radar or in the 5 minutes that we'll have to speak, but trying to really get them hooked and saying that practically we are also interested in your perspective, but also in things that probably are not ours immediately, but are yours, and that's how we build bridges. But until the very end, you do not know how much this works. And when you get the results, you have a sort of an idea how much your work has been listened to and so on. So this is one of the things that we tried, and of course other countries have other tools, and it depends on the possibilities and the means, and of course the presence there. But also we made sure of something, that when we were in the Council, we wanted to have fresh-hand information. And if you're not in Burkina Faso, you will not know exactly what's really the nitty-gritty of the everyday life there, or in Sudan or elsewhere. So we tried also to coalesce with a number of partners that we built during the campaign, so that we would also have their perspective, their information, and of course very closely working with the European Union and with like-minded countries who are present, and of course we will exchange information with them. So this is a little bit how we handled having information in places where we are not physically present. In relation to thematic and country-specific issues, I think the situation has changed a little bit, because the elected 10 of course, they are very much interested in thematic issues. And of course, they use the presidency to have those open debates. Open debates are the one full day meetings of the council where non-council members of the UN can come and speak in the council. It's also always important. It always has more visibility, the council, than the other bodies. But also it is very important because you see where the world stands on these issues, including children and armed conflicts, climate and security, accountability, rule of law. So there are a myriad of issues of importance for at least for the presidency, so that we have this exposure, and the elected countries. And I know that in the campaign of Denmark now, this issue is very important. They want non-member states to be more and more present in the council, and that's part of the priorities, at least how they have exposed them in New York. It is also the change that we have brought, at least as we have seen, and also the case of Albania. We want also to be part of the country-specific issues. So we are co-holder with the US on Ukraine. We brought and are trying to bring back the issue of human rights in North Korea. So it has been in the council, it was dormant, and now we have coalesced with 60 member states and very much hope to bring into the council. How you gain sort of a prominent role, we will be organizing this month in Aria Formula. The Aria Formula is an informal meeting of the council on human rights in North Korea. So we build a profile that we are the very interested country to really lead the dossier. So this is how you get the ticket to be first on the issue. And of course, you try to also see how you can partner. You mentioned the coalitions between different small states. You partner with small states, but also others in organizing either side events or thematic issues and specific issues. So I think the focus is changing on both grounds. So this is what I wanted to share. So I leave something for other colleagues.
Yes, on working with the Global South, Estonia had a contested campaign, so we were really making an effort to get our votes. And it also pushed us to work more broadly with the Global South. I mean, Estonia also has very, very limited representation in Africa, for example, where there are 55 countries altogether, I believe. So during the campaign, we visited them at high level, like African Union meeting, Caribbean meetings. We went to South-South conference in Argentina at high level. I think most of the interest that we experienced from the Global South was towards Estonian reform experience, also digitalization, e-governance, cybersecurity issues. That has been an interest for them for a while, and this is the experience we've been providing with the countries that are interested in it. Then, while we were already in the council, I mean, there's you, as ambassador also said, like you work with everyone every day, basically. Like it's, I mean, you cannot just work with your allies and friends, but you have to work with every council member. Then, especially during our presidencies, we also worked with the affected countries, and we heard their perspective. Then on some thematic issues, we worked within the council with the other regions, like Dominican, for example. We worked on the COVID working methods because they had a presidency before us, and then we took over from them. So there was a lot of coordination and cooperation. We supported, for example, Indonesian cybersecurity area formula meeting while they were preparing, and worked on that issue. Then when the COVID-19 started, then it was very, very difficult because of the tensions among the P5. Especially some of them, it was difficult to even have a meeting on COVID-19 within the council. So we pushed from the elected member side. We had 9 elected members asking for the meeting, and then the Secretary General agreed to come and brief us on his activities. So, I mean, this is really I think within the council, it's an everyday work that with all council members. And during our campaign, we also promised that we will keep our door open for the general UN membership, and we did that. So if anyone asked for for briefing, or they asked to brief us about their issue, then we always had a meeting with them. On thematic, where compared to crises, I think the crises are the different country-specific issues. I mean, this is also the everyday work of the UN Security Council, and this is probably what we prepared most for, like different country files, like what is happening in these conflicts, made sure that we had experts on all the issues that were on the council agenda. Of course, a lot of things happened. We got the penholdership on Afghanistan on our second year, so we had to strengthen our ability to work on that issue, like both in the capital and also in UN. On Ukraine, we worked, the war started already in 2014. So this was an issue that we constantly wanted to bring awareness to. There were a lot of other conflicts and coups that were happening while we were in the council, like the Ethiopian crisis. We were chairing Sudan Sanctions Committee, and there were major developments while we were in the council. So this was really like our everyday work.
Yeah, I might just supplement a bit. I think both of the questions were actually for the practitioners, but just a small example was the one I left out on promoting the peace building committee, because one of the interesting aspects of it was that Denmark partnered with Tanzania during the process. So setting up the seminars in the years before, having preparing the research and so forth that supported these efforts, but also when we have the thematic debates within the Security Council was together with Tanzania. So that was a very concrete way to promote a global South perspective, and perhaps also lend the initiative a bit of legitimacy among the global South members. So that's at least a short example. So yeah.
Thank you very much. Let me know if there are any questions. But in the meantime, I'm going to ask a question myself. I was wondering. I mean, you mentioned this being the pen holder or being the co-pen holder, and I was wondering, Estonia. You or Kristen, you mentioned that you had both the experience with Norway and French, I think it was. So I was, and now you're sitting on the Ukraine, being a co-pen holder and that one. So I was wondering if there's differences between being the co-pen holder with a permanent or a non-permanent member. And then I would also ask you, because I think we have a unique opportunity, if you could tell a bit more about how you are working on the Ukraine. Anyone else? Yes, Nina.
Thank you. My name is Nana Vita, and I used to be a diplomat in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and actually did the preparation of the last time we sat on the Security Council. And I think your presentation was very fair, but it's also fair to say that the three results you listed, they've all gone down. The Peacebuilding Commission disappeared 3-4 years after. We are now reconsidering whether we should reanimate it. And there are lots of things. And I share all your high ideas about the UNSC. But at the same time, I must say, in this country, for instance, we talk about the Security Council the year before doing the campaigning. And once we leave, we don't talk about it anymore. It's a New York world created where it's the most important thing in the world. I'm sorry. And I think you put it rightly, saying it's the dream of all diplomats to be in the Security Council. But if we are honest about it, I went last week to a seminar where they listed conflicts since 1945, after the Second World War. And there is this huge list of conflicts that have never ended, starting with the Korean, even the only war that might have ended was the Vietnam War. But the rest of them are still going on. You can mention all of you. Syria, you can Libya, you can take them all. And they're not ended. And all of them have been on the topics of the UNSC. And sometimes I'm getting old now. So I'm sitting thinking, my God, what are you doing? And what will be, let me put a more concrete question to you. Once you end your presidency as Albania, you've been part of the Security Council, what would you like to put on your results list? Say, this is what we did. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. My name is Per. I used to be the Secretary General of a Nordic engineering association, but never mind. But thank you very much for your very interesting presentations. I understand that all the small countries, they have to swim with the 6 sharks, but also the small countries are very different. I mean, and they are, of course, very busy trying to find issues where they can influence the general way of working in the Security Council. But there are rich countries, there are industrial countries, there are poorer countries, there are maybe different religions, etc. And these things, I guess, also have some kind of influence. So my question is, which of these small countries are the most important, and why? Who is it important to have an alliance with? I could imagine that the UK is very important because they have a language, they have a diplomatic tradition, they have a network of international network, etc. Who are the ones that are most important in this work? Because of course all small countries are working, and we all have to do our best. But I guess that there are some other, walls of different kind that may block anything or everything or something. Thank you.
I saw your hand, but I think we'll take a round of...
Okay, so you want to start?
Yeah, perhaps on the working with the P5 and E10 member on pen holderships, like we have a experience with both, and I would say really like it was both of them were good experience. Of course, with Norway we are very close, and France had more experience, but we took this file where we had pen holdership on the Libyan resolutions. We took it over from Germany. Together with France. So, I mean, we were both pen holders. We started to be pen holders then on that issue. So, and our cooperation was excellent. Afghanistan was a lot bigger file, and there were bigger developments on the ground. So this we definitely had to put a lot more effort on that. And working with Norway was also an excellent opportunity for us, and we are very like-minded. So it wasn't. I wouldn't say it was wasn't difficult. Like it was a pleasure to work with them. But on the crisis, and like the crisis not ending, unfortunately, I think one of the roles of the Security Council is also bring light to the issues, and there is a place in the world where these conflicts are discussed. At least if we don't manage to end them. Ideally, of course, we should prevent conflicts in the Security Council. Prevention is also on the agenda. It's a very difficult task because of several political issues. But I mean, at least there is a body where like with Ukraine, like it's very difficult to adopt any resolution at the moment. But I mean, the attention of the world is there, including in the Security Council.
Okay, so I'll start with the frustration. I share it entirely with you. Yes, it is very frustrating to be in the council and not be able to deliver. To be in the council and to see people die. To be in the council and to see conflicts either continue or new ones that come. So the key word is prevention. There hasn't been a case that the Security Council has been able to prevent any wars, and I'm not sure they will, because it was not created for that. It was created with a formula that is, with the péché original, that it can be blocked at any time by at least 5, and probably by the elected countries as well, if they come together, because for one resolution to be adopted, you need 9 positive votes. And the P5 alone, they cannot do it. So they will have to reach out. They will have to work with at least 4 other elected countries if they are together or more. So yes, the Council has not been able to prevent, and I'm not sure that we will change the human nature as easily. But there is one example of prevention that history has shown, and this is in this country and around, is the European Union. we know the history. We know what has happened before 45, before the UN was created, and how Europe was killing each other all the time through histories, until they realized that probably there's another way to do things. And I think this is the value of the UN. This is what the UN this is the value of the European Union, and this is the European Union has to sell in terms of how to do things differently when you have tried everything nasty. This is the model that can be created in other worlds as well, but we will not be able in Security Council to prevent any wars, but we will be able to try and manage as best as we can, to try and help them as best as we can, to try and mobilize the world in humanitarian aid and and resilience and later development. And in this, I think that there is some value. Imagine one day that we don't have the Security Council, we don't have the UN. I'm not sure that we'll have less conflicts. We'll have more. But of course, this is a guess, but I'm sure it is the valid guess. So we are frustrated with what we have. This is the best that the world has managed to have. Sanctions sometimes work, sometimes they do not. But I still believe that by having the Security Council shed light, because when it's not only the member states, it's not only the humanitarian partners, it's also the press. So that helps to really shed light, that helps to document crimes, that helps accountability later. And many of them, Charles Taylor, Milosevic, they died in prison. I mean, Milosevic died in prison, but others have been in prison. So it can be very slow, it can be frustrating, it should be faster. It is not, but still it's good to have it. P5 cooperation. I think once, and this is my experience with one of the P5, probably the most influential one, the United States. Once you get their respect, they respect you immensely. They trust you until the end. I have never been given by the US a paper to read on Ukraine. We have worked together. They accepted our drafts. They accept our proposals, our modifications. They are a huge machine. We are a very modest one, but they respect us all the way, because we are both together there. And I hope that our team has been able to show them that we are as serious as them and as capable as them on specific issues. We don't have that look that they have all over the world, but on issues on which we want to be more active, we have shown them that we can do things in a very admirable way. And of course, we have earned their trust. It is very easy to work with them once you gain their trust. But that's, of course, in more in the council than outside. Which countries? Everyone. So, of course, we have this expression of the like-minded countries. Of course, it's easier for me to work with Estonia. It's easier for me to work with small countries, if I can call them so, with Luxembourg and with the Czechs and the Slovaks and many others, with Costa Rica, with Guatemala. It's very easy. We understand each other. We speak the same language in terms of interest, in terms of reach out. It is more difficult with others, but we have to work with everyone. And once you're in the council, that's where you try to build these little bridges, because you're just 10 elected. I have one example. We had many meetings on North Korea, and of course their missile launches, and of course the nuclear program, and so on and so on. So, and after some time, I saw that the elected countries were saying all the same thing. We're calling on North Korea, we're condemning their acts, and we're deploring the humanitarian situation, and of course the course and the policies of the regime. Then I proposed that let's have one statement, because we're saying all the same time the same things. It was not possible, because everybody wants to have a voice in Security Council, so you don't easily lend your voice to somebody else. But then let's do press conferences together, and we did together. So there is always, these are little things that from the outside look like nothing, but in terms of trying to create patterns in working together and coalescing, this is really a lot. And during the 2 years, you don't have much the time to really do a lot of these things. So if you do 2 or 3, you'll be very, very happy. And then you go with that back home. And so we did something. So what will remain when we go out of the council? I think you spoke about the prestige, and it is prestige, of course. It is this momentous, and for us it's historic. In 65 years, it's the first time for Albania has been in the council, so we do not want to waste it, and we try to really be as much as possible visible with initiatives, or at least show that we had a purpose to go there. We just didn't go there because we were elected. We went there because we wanted to be elected and wanted to bring a voice, a perspective, and push for some issues. Every resolution in which we have worked where we could put one word for human rights, every resolution where we put one word for women, peace and security, every press statement where we could push these issues of importance, which will remain in the historic of the Council's work, we will take them as a success. Even if they do not, in a 10-page resolution, one paragraph that we might have been able to add doesn't look like much. It is a lot, because the resolution will define how the mandates of the peacekeeping missions will be affected. If we want, for instance, to have the mandate, the UN mission in Somalia look at the effects of the drought, of the climate change, that may become a pattern everywhere. So we bring from the windows, since we couldn't bring it from the door, the issue of peace, the issue of climate and its implications for peace and security. These are really baby steps and little steps, but I think they are part of, if everybody does its work, they are part of what we may be happy to get back when we go out of the Council. And then lastly, I think by being in the Council, you get more attention of the national authorities, of the national public on the UN, its role. So they will be more able to understand why we are paying our dues to the UN, what they are doing, is the money being spent wisely, and what are the results. And we will be able, if we're given a chance, to explain these things.
Very shortly, I'm not here to defend the UN Security Council. I understand your skepticism. I would just like to comment on the last point you had. So I think one of the things that struck me when I read the archival records was that I thought there was relatively little political guidance from Anders Fogh Rasmussen at that time. I actually thought that it seemed like there's a lot of continuity in the way the Danish positions. So I had difficulty identifying really strong Danish positions. So perhaps that's also an issue today, that we have perhaps a hard time identifying what is actually important, because I guess Denmark agree with much of what is being said. So are there any strong political positions that we really want to fight for, and which will really define our membership period afterwards? I think that's difficult to identify, I would say. Yeah.
Just one word on Ukraine, because you asked me.
Well, maybe you can keep it to afterwards.
Okay.
We are actually running out of time. The clocks are a little bit different, so I think we still have 2 minutes. If you have a brief question, since I promised you.
Yeah, thank you very much. My name is Sarai Sam. I'm a leader of the Cambodian opposition in exile in Denmark. And thank you very much for your presentation. It's very interesting, and I have learned a lot. Now, from my perspective, I see that like the world is in crisis, like climate crisis, financial crisis, pandemic, and the war. And I would like to know what is the small state can do to influence to the P5 to make a solution for solving this crisis. As now, from my perspective, like China and Russia also violate the international law, and seem to be no solutions through this international law. So what is the small state can do? Thank you very much.
So very, very briefly.
I mean, we will never oblige the P5 to adopt our ideas, but we will always try, and we will always tell, and we will always speak out, and we'll try to gather as much as possible support. But I think what is not decided in the Security Council, which is unfortunate, whenever there is a veto or whenever there is sufficient disagreement not to push something forward, is transferred to the General Assembly. And as we have seen, we have been proposing resolutions for Ukraine. We knew that they would be vetoed, but we transferred them to the General Assembly, so to the whole world, to see where the world stands and to build that critical mass so that everybody understands that we want this. And you've seen the results, 141, 143. That is a huge number of countries that are on one side, and you have seen Russia with 3 or 4, lately with just 6 countries that are on its side. So you see that this is the way that you can push. This is the way that you can really build those large coalitions where everybody will be asking for those resolutions to be implemented and for activities to really take shape. So this is what we can do. We try in the council, and if you fail in the council, when we know, unfortunately, then we continue our work elsewhere. So this is how the international work works.
So I want to thank our 3 speakers, Troels from the FAC and Kristin from Estonia, and of course Ferit from Albania, and of course all of you who have come and joined us for this event. And I wish you a nice afternoon. Thank you.